Thanks a lot for coming out. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about growth, and then we can kind of make it interactive. So I'll kind of give examples and ideas from the audience based on things I've seen work in the past. Okay. So usually when I talk about growth, we're looking at traffic and conversion. But today you also need to kind of include success. So you drive the traffic to the page, you convert it, and then success is what happens after they actually convert. Make sure they're happy, they're successful. Okay. So this is kind of stuff everyone already knows. So this is kind of another way to explain it. So you attract, engage, and then delight. Attract is the traffic, engage is the conversion, and delight is the success, and the customers are kind of at the center of the circle. So when we think about conversion, we usually think, okay, well, how do we get a great landing page or ebook or video or sales pitch and blog post? So these are like the key starting pieces that are all very important. And then, over the last 10 years, we've seen people add a bit more interactive forms of content as well, which I'll be kind of focusing on today. And with success, similarly, people usually think of it as an email before renewal, maybe an NPS score. But there's a lot of things you can do with some more interactive forms of content that helps your customers. So let's kind of dive into some examples so you guys can get a better sense of this. So first, the reason why interactive content is really important is because when you meet someone, if you have a good conversation, usually both people are talking, right? And so what happens in this situation is where one person's talking, it's kind of not very entertaining or enjoyable for the other person. Some of you might have been on dates or meetings where you're in this position. So the key idea is that you want to interact. You don't want to just be one directional talking. And most of the marketing that we've done in the past usually is one directional. So how can we make it two directional? How can we make it interactive? How can we make it a conversation? So one great example, obviously, I think everyone has heard of it, is Amazon. When you land on your page, you're not getting the same page that another person gets. You're getting a unique page based on what you've bought before, what you just bought, and they're kind of personalizing the recommendations. All right, so I think everyone's already seen this. I'll move quickly through it. All right, HubSpot Marketing Grader. Has anyone taken this grader, the HubSpot Marketing Grader? So, okay, we got a couple people. The idea is that they actually stumbled upon this. They thought, oh, you know what we'll do is we have software to help people with their blog and to help people with their social. So we're going to create a scanner where you put in your email and you're putting your website link. And we're not just going to tell you, here are the top 10 things to improve your SEO, or here are the top 10 things to improve your social media, which they already had on their blog. They're actually going to scan your website and give you specific information about images or text on the page that isn't optimized for SEO. And they're going to give specific suggestions for social. And what's unique about it is that the suggestions are going to tell you, like, on this specific page, you don't have like an alt tag on this image. And that's much more personalized and relevant than the blog post that they have. So they kind of complemented their blog post with this piece of content, which is a good addition. So the blog post is generic for everyone, and then this is a much more personalized content piece, which is a great way to add that personalization and interactivity. And this turned out to be their greatest lead source. Okay, so imagine how much traffic it drove for them. And it was just an engineer kind of who built it up. And they actually ended up building out a team to help build these types of tools, because you kind of need a bit of product, a bit of sales, a bit of marketing to come together and build these tools. It wasn't kind of a one. You can't really do a great job with it with just one person. And so that's how they kind of went about doing it. Okay, IKEA wanted to improve the online purchase experience, and so they realized that sometimes when you're buying online, you want to see how the furniture looks in your apartment or home. And so they created this augmented reality app where you can see how the couch or any furniture would fit within the context of your home, and you don't have to measure dimensions or figure out spacing. It kind of does that for you using an augmented reality iPad app. Okay, Nike is one of my favorite examples because they do this really well, and they've been doing it for a long time. And so their idea was, they didn't just want to they want to obviously involve themselves in much more than just the purchasing of the shoe, right? They want to involve themselves with people who are passionate about athletics, people who are into sports. And so what they decided to do was build applications. You don't have to be a Nike customer, you could be anyone. And the idea is to create a leaderboard and incentivize people to run more or walk more or jog more, whatever it might be. So they create these groups. You can have you can kind of plan to meet up with people. You can compete and have a and see, okay, how many miles did you run this week relative to someone else. And so these apps that they made were part of their digital engagement, and they are very technical with their approach. So they basically looked at all the people who downloaded their app, and they looked at not just the new customer acquisition rate, right, which would be, okay, how many customers were Adidas or Reebok or some or not wearing Nike shoes that after downloading this app then bought Nike because they're engaging with the app every day. So that's one metric that they looked at. And the other metric they looked at was, what is the lift in purchase from our existing customers? So how did we adjust our retention and repurchase rate? And what was the basically they ended up summarizing that into a CLV lift, which is a customer lifetime value lift as a result of downloading the app. And they started doing this around 2012, and they found that the return was so high relative to the cost of building these applications, because they are providing these for free. So they're not actually getting any direct return on these. It's for free and it's for everyone. They're getting the return from that brand engagement, and then they ended up building a whole arm in Nike to take advantage of this phenomenon. Okay, and then this is for venture pact. This is a basically it's a marketplace for building applications. And so here what we did was they kind of thought, okay, well, when you're trying to build a mobile app, it's so complicated because you don't know how much it costs, you don't know how it varies, you don't know how it kind of is influenced kind of by geography, it's influenced by feature. And so this is a calculator where you answer a set of questions, and then at the end, they tell you, here's an estimate based on the features you want, and here's an estimate based on the geography. And so you're getting a lot of information very quickly about the specific app you're trying to build. And what's amazing about this is that previously, when you wanted to build an application, the amount of communication was hours of actual conversation, but also took weeks to actually get a final number in terms of how much it would cost. So you waste all this time. Now, you can give them a quick estimate quite quickly, and they can see, you know what, if I remove this feature and I move from, whatever, US to Mexico or US to Argentina, I can save this much money, and now I'm in budget. And so now I can actually do this application. Or you might decide not to do it at all. But now imagine, as a marketing person, sending this lead to the sales team. The sales team knows that this person, we know what they're trying to build because they've already answered some questions about it. We know that they've opted in to learning more about in this geography and with these features. And we know that they know the price range. So it's a much more qualified lead for sales, and it's a much better thing as marketers. It's a much better lead, much more qualified, much more relevant. Okay. So basically, customers want to be engaged with and not just sold to. You're kind of engaging with them with this content. We're actually helping them. We're giving them value. And so now they're trusting us more because we're helping them solve a problem. We're not just telling them we're the best. We're telling them, this is what you can do to improve. And so we're focusing on them and not ourselves. So how do you build these products? Okay, so obviously, if you have an in-house development team, you can do that. You could also hire an outsourced team. So I'm biased. So I'm part of the Outgrow team, and what we do is we have a SaaS tool so that people can build this stuff on their own. We have like a builder, so you won't need developers to do it. You can kind of do it from the builder. So that's my bias because I'm part of that team. But you can kind of do any of these three options that work for your team. So it depends on what you're looking for and what works for you. And this is how you would go about building them. And so building these types of products. So the rest of the talk is going to be very focused on coming up with ideas for what to build, and we'll try to get some audience participation and get ideas relevant to your businesses. But generally speaking, when you're trying to come up with ideas, we always start with the sales and support team. They are interacting with customers on a daily basis. They're getting questions quite often, and what we look at is, when the salesperson is answering a question and the answer is it depends, then it's irrelevant to maybe build a tool around it, right? So if the answer is the same, if you have one plan or one shoe and it's $10 or whatever for everyone, then you don't need to build a tool around it because it's like, well, it's $10 for everyone. But if you have something a little more nuanced and there's a bit more variety, and then it can make sense to build a tool around it to guide people based on their company size, their department, their goals, what would be the most relevant option for them. And that recommendation is a lot more useful and a lot more relevant. Other things you can do. So behavior that's most successful, like if there's a specific behavior, successful people who use your product or service are kind of, you identify them as being successful, then how can you incentivize more of that behavior? And so you can do a lot of things. So I know Uber gives drivers badges if they provide refreshments, and so they kind of try to incentivize behavior based on what they think drives success. And then things that are shared in your industry can also be relevant, or things that are controversial. So a lot of times, like there'll be if you're an accountant, you have an accounting agency, and there's a new tax bill, you'll build a calculator showing how this new tax bill could impact your taxes. If there's a new healthcare policy, you can say, okay, this new healthcare policy, how is it going to impact your insurance premiums? How is it going to impact you based on your specific conditions, based on your specific state and age and all these things? How is it going to impact your rate? So that's going to give you much more personalized information. Okay. If you'd like ideas, you can email it. You can email us, and we can send you ideas. I'm also going to basically try to interact with the audience and give some ideas to as many as I can, as much time as I have, to kind of interact with you guys and try to help you find, explore some of the ideas and some of the examples that we've seen be successful for your industry. And so we can kind of do that. So I don't know if there's anyone who's comfortable sharing their industry or a little bit about their company, and then we can kind of go through any interesting, cool ideas that I've seen kind of work for that industry. Is anyone willing to share their industry name? Yeah? Cybersecurity. Do you want to try throwing the microphone?
Good.
All right. Wow.
All right. Cybersecurity, so penetration testing as a service.
Okay, great. And so the way it works is it like a quarterly fee that someone pays for the penetration service, or?
So it's subscription-based model per quarter.
Yeah.
Or you could do an annual one-off pen test.
Right. And you usually work with SaaS companies or larger technology companies, or?
So mainly startups and scale-ups, pre-seed, round A, round B type companies that are developing their software. And so anything from like 10 people up until like 300 people.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there's a few ideas that come to mind. So within cybersecurity, one of the key ideas I would think about is maybe a top of the funnel piece of content where you're basically just engaging with people, testing their knowledge of common penetration test vulnerabilities, right? So you basically ask them a set of questions around how much do you actually know about common vulnerabilities or more recent vulnerabilities that can be included in your application. So you can have like the SQL injections, this kind of the standard stuff. You ask them questions about it, and you create it like a knowledge test just to engage people, very top of the funnel, as a kind of a quiz knowledge test. So I would do that. Then I would do something a little more kind of difficult to build, but can be powerful, where you tell them, here is put your website in. And give us your email, kind of like the HubSpot example. And then you scan the site and you see if there's any, and you kind of say, we've identified, 3 or 5 quick fixes that you can implement. Maybe give them one for free, and then say you can explore the rest of them. Right? You don't want to give them everything because you want them to pay for the service. So you can give them some information, maybe an overview, and then to actually get the actual report where that you show them the exact mechanism by which you exploited the vulnerability, they can subscribe to your service, or you can do in addition to the subscription service, give them they pay a certain fee to get the quick vulnerability. So maybe the vulnerability is just on their main site and not the actual SaaS application. So the SaaS application is your main service where you're actually testing the entire software, but then you might just do a simpler version where you're testing the website, and either do that as a separate fee one time or a separate subscription fee. And so basically now they've interacted for free, they've gotten some information, and you've pique their interest to say, oh, wait, we have these vulnerabilities, we can go further. So that would be the second one. And then the last one I would do is, a lot of times, if you're working with these small companies, they don't understand the importance of what you provide sometimes. And there are two main reasons why companies would use cybersecurity. The first is they're trying to close a deal with a large enterprise company, and the large enterprise company needs certain certifications or evidence that you're doing these quarterly penetration test reviews, and so they need the report. So that would be one example. And then the second is they actually want their site to be protected because they don't want their customer data to be exploited or their site to be exploited. So those are the two main reasons that they would use it. And so I would kind of try to create a content piece around those two ideas, which is trying to sell into the enterprise as a new startup, see how you can get some of your certifications, audits, penetration testing under, like, kind of set it and forget it. And you say, you need to do this quarterly anyway as part of your enterprise sales process. This is set it and forget it. You don't need to email us every quarter. We're already going to send you the report. So you can do something around that for that side. And for the other side, I would create. Sorry, I've been going on for a while, but I this is such a perfect example. It was not planted. I've never met him, but it's such a perfect example. And then the other one I would do was basically say estimate the risk of not taking care of your security. And they basically say, okay, we have like 2 million records, we have 30,000 customers, and then you can show them, well, okay, the risk of not properly protecting your security is so high that whatever fee you're charging them is so small relative to the risk of what they could lose if they didn't take care of it. So I would do that as well. All right?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other industries? It doesn't have to be as good as cybersecurity, but it can be anything. All right, a great receiver and a great quarterback.
Okay, so our company is called MedicareInsurance.com. As the name entails, we offer additional Medicare options for people who are on Medicare to get better coverage for specific healthcare treatments or services they might require. Because Medicare, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but the basic plan that's government regulated doesn't cover everything. And just really quickly, some of the pain points about that are it is government regulated, so there's only so much we can really try.
True.
So it's kind of a little bit constricted in that way, but it's also really highly competitive. So to try to find something that's sort of different or unique is difficult as well. So I was wondering what your advice would be.
That's great. Okay, just to get a couple questions, make sure I understand what you guys do. So basically, you take people who are already on Medicare and they might have a certain condition where Medicare's reimbursements are quite low, and so their copay is a bit high, or Medicare's reimbursements are basically none. And you come and say, hey, this is an added layer of insurance to protect you for where Medicare doesn't. And you provide that added layer of insurance.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. Also, we target people who are about to reach Medicare age and aren't sure exactly to what level maybe they should get based on their specific needs.
And then last question, when you do, for the people who are trying to get the added layer, or trying to figure out the layer, is there a certain, is it like, oh, we focus on diabetics and cardiovascular disease, or is it kind of, it could be anyone?
Well, it's older population, so things that generally affect older populations. So heart disease, stroke, diabetes is a big one. But really, it covers anything that is a healthcare issue, maybe.
Sure. Okay. So in this case, there's a few things I would do. The first thing I would do, which is kind of the standard thing you would do, is kind of an eligibility calculator, where people can come in and they kind of put in their age. They put in their, so to be eligible for Medicare, you need to be, it was a year and a half within 65, but there's other variables depending on, you've had to pay a certain amount of taxes for 10 years, and then you become eligible at certain benchmarks. But it's roughly around the 65 age range. So I would create like an eligibility calculator, and you can kind of show them, okay, this is when you'll be eligible. And then what I would say is, you're going to be eligible in 6 months. See what you can see what you should know, or what you should be doing with your Medicare plan. And so then you'll ask them a set of questions like, okay, have you had a cardiac event in the past? What's your blood glucose level, and are you pre-diabetic, diabetic, whatever? Have you had a stroke? So you can ask them a set of questions, and you say, okay, well, you're based on that information. there are certain plans they would recommend. So you can say, okay, out of the plans available, the Medicare options, there's like multiple Medicare options, right?
Chris, you're the compliance guy. Brad can answer.
Yeah, so we sell Humana, like Aetna, a bunch of different carrier plans.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So basically, then you would try to figure out which carrier plan is the most relevant. You guys are insurance brokers, right?
Yeah, we're a brokerage.
Yeah. So then I would basically try to figure out, okay, which insurance plan is relevant for that person.
So kind of like a recommender system, like
yeah, kind of like a recommender system. Yeah. So the first would be like an eligibility thing. Then I would do like a recommender system. That would be the second thing I would do. That might be a bit harder to do, automated, but I think that would be really useful. The third thing I would do is create risk assessments. So a lot of times people aren't very, like they don't fully understand or appreciate the risks. So you might guide them in terms of saying, okay, here is a cardiac risk assessment. And so you ask them a set of questions around data they might have or might not have. So you can ask them things about blood pressure or if they've done any lipid panels or blood tests recently, if they can give you some rough numbers around that. And then you can say, okay, well, based on your, HDL, LDL, whatever cholesterol levels, you are, considered moderate to high risk of a cardiac event. And so you probably want, I don't know if it's an added layer of insurance or whatever it might be, to make sure you're protected against this. You could even recommend like a checkup based on some information that they provide. So cardiac assessment, diabetes is another one where it's kind of you get their blood. They ask them for their blood glucose levels if they have it, and then if they are pre-diabetic or if they've been diagnosed in the past with any sugar issues, and then give them some recommendations. So you can give them a risk, but you can also give them recommendations in terms of, okay, well, what are you eating? And then you should probably like reduce your desserts, if you're diabetic, or give them some like food recommendations. So I would do that. And then other things I would do might be, so for people who already have Medicare, ask them a set of, say like, oh, see how much you really know about your Medicare plan, because some people really don't know what they have. And so you basically ask them, okay, how long have you been on Medicare and what's your plan? So you say, okay, well, I'm Aetna and whatever, Medicare X. And so then they say, okay, then you say, okay, let's see if you actually understand what your plan is. So it's like, okay, well, what's your actual like premium, your copays? Do you like what are the issues you have, and then what's actually covered? So they say, okay, well, they cover an annual physical, but they don't cover whatever dental cleaning. So you can kind of guide them through that part. And so that's a good way to take people who already have Medicare and understand, should they change their plans when they can, or are they actually leveraging their plan as much as they could? So you kind of are creating content for the existing people already on Medicare, or the people who, as well as the earlier ideas around eligibility, bringing people in who are just under 65, who are kind of on the path. So I would do that as well. So those are a few ideas in Medicare. Insurance is a great field to build calculators, because the premium itself is a calculator as well. Like, what's your premium? And so you can build a calculator as a premium range, see how much you would pay for that. Yeah, I don't know if there's health savings accounts. The health savings accounts aren't as relevant for Medicare people, right? Because they've retired usually.
We're specifically doing Medicare Advantage plans, so Medicare Part C. So it's a little bit different than that, like supplement plans. But there's a lot of technicalities in our industry for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so those would be a few I would start with. Yeah,
thank you.
Great. Any other businesses or companies? Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that an interception? Okay.
So my name's Casey, and I am with a home improvement brand.
Okay.
We are a retail store, so B2C. And we obviously operate underneath all of the big box stores, like Home Depot and Lowe's and things like that. But I think one of our biggest things is that we are very store-based. We do have e-commerce, but it's not had a long history, just a few short years, and it's growing tremendously. But I think one of the things that we're trying to figure out is how to better engage our customers with our e-commerce platform. We do have room visualizers and estimators, but trying to find ways to be innovative.
Sure. So your home improvement brand is you sell product and services on top of it, or you just do product?
Just the product. We do not do installation.
Just the product. And is there a specific part of the home, or you do everything?
We do everything from kitchens, baths, flooring, windows, doors. And one of our big selling points is that we will meet or beat the competitor's price by 10%.
Oh wow, okay. And you said most of your sale is e-com, but you have some small stores?
No, we have about 103 stores.
Okay.
And so we really push people to our stores. The e-commerce platform is only a few years old.
Okay. So this is a cool example. So there's a couple things I would do here. The first would be around specific events that would trigger a home improvement, right? So one would be like kitchen remodeling, right? So then you'd say, you're remodeling your kitchen. Okay, so then the first question would be like, do you have a design in mind, or are you looking for designs? Then you could maybe give them like a few samples, and they can choose a sample. And then you could say, okay, well, for this sample, these are the kind of materials you would need, and this is how much it would cost with us. For this sample, this is the materials. You can kind of guide them in their kitchen remodeling decision process. And it might be, depending on where they are in the funnel, like they might like have already decided and now they're just in the purchasing part. And then that's easier for you because then you're just trying to say, okay, well, you've already figured out the design. What are the products you need? But I would create something around that. So it would be like kitchen remodeling, flooring, whatever, cabinets. So whatever they might be changing, I would create content around that and trying to help them do that. And that helps with keywords, because what you want to look at is say, okay, what are the keywords that you're seeing people search on Google and Bing? And so you say, okay, a lot of people are searching for like the actual keyword is kitchen remodeling. Your calculator, where you recommend where you can recommend the kitchen, like the materials they would need, designs they would need, and then also the products, and give them a rough estimate. That would be useful. The other thing around cost, I think, is a great use case, especially for bottom of the funnel. So if someone already knows what they want, and you tell them, oh, looking at purchasing, vinyl flooring, and then they say, yeah, then you can go in and say, okay, well, what's your square footage, and what type of vinyl, and then you can tell them, oh, by the way, and from Home Depot and Lowe's, this is what you pay, and with us, it's 10% less. So you kind of show them Home Depot versus Lowe's versus us. And then because you're already 10% lower, and you can kind of show them the savings. So you can do that. You could do things, you do residential and commercial. Yes, you can even do like commercial, the kind of calculators where it might be like an event venue or a hotel, or if there are certain things that people are doing. I know in Vegas when they remodel the hotels. It's like a huge, my time's up. Okay, quickly. In Vegas, when they remodel the hotels, they have all these initiatives in place to sell what they already have, but then also figure out what they should get new. So you can kind of have specific content for like remodeling hotel. And then you can say, okay, well, these are the most common things you would need, and this is how we would help you buy them. Those are a few ideas. I'm running out of time, but I'm happy to chat afterwards. I'll be here. Thank you for being such a great audience.